Hello, everybody. David Art Becker here again. It's Thursday. You know what we got to do? We got to paint. This week we're going to do a nice waterfall. But before that, before we start, what I'm going to do is thank a bunch of you. Thanks for somebody who gave me the idea of a waterfall. And again, if anybody wants to give me ideas of what you like to paint, let me know. I will definitely put it in on a list of things to paint. We've painted so many things, and so it's always good to have a new idea. So thanks a lot for doing that. I also want to thank I have an anonymous donor out there who's been anonymously donating funds for these my classes and for my keeping this free, the paint-alongs. And so thank you so much. If you do want to send me funds, I do have a place on my site to donate. This anonymous donor, I should say, has been doing it by mail. And but thank you so much. I also have the Facebook group. I know you guys are putting your work on there, and thank you so much for that. The works are looking great, and it looks like everybody's helping each other out, and that's what I kind of made it for, so you guys help each other out. So that's awesome. And let me go to this now, and we're going to be, for all you newcomers here, we do this every Thursday, and these are the supplies we're using. This is the supplies we use. And I want to talk today about this painting. Here's what we're painting today. And so I didn't do a value study today. I did a changing the photograph to a black and white. So sometimes you do that when I don't have enough time to do the value study and a pencil value study. But you can see that pretty much right down the middle, if you look right, let me see, hold on one second. Let me put this over here. Right down the middle here, this is the light area going right through here, right to this. So that's our light, right? So we keep everything in there light, this area. This is our dark. You know, it's like I like to always make things my light and dark. And if you look over here on this picture, you kind of see that, but a lot of times people think that these little shadows here, they're probably just as light, or they feel that it's just as light as these oranges back here and the blue sky. But you got to think of it more of the values, not about the color at first. Look for the values. And so we're going to do that. We're going to come in here. I am going to change a couple of things out, like the colors. This color, the blue up here, we got the blue sky. And when you use a blue sky, that usually blue and orange are complements. But then when we come down here, we see there's a lot of violets and stuff in there in that area. So actually, we'll probably use a little bit of violet with the yellow. So it's kind of hard to think, do you go with the red and green? Do you go with orange and blue, or yellow and violet that complements each other? But you can go with like two of those, and I'm probably going to go with the blue and the orange. So that's what we'll do tonight. And so again, and also we got, let's see, today we're drinking a tiki nitro. It's like, what is it called? Getting tiki with it. So it's a pina colada wheat ale. So always something different. So cheers, everybody. Here we go. And let me just say hi to whoever is here. Let's see, we got Marianne, we've got Everett, Suze, Maura, Sonia, Maria, Carol, Lynn, Tina, Ann, Karen, Linda. Thanks for coming by, guys. We're going to be getting going in a second. Pina colada wheat. Interesting. All right, let's get onto the tabletop, and let's get going here. And so, again, for anybody who's new here, please ask the questions. Just go ahead and type them in on the side, the chat on the side there, and I look up every once in a while to look at and see if you have any questions. So, last week we had the kayaker, and everybody did a great job. And the problem that most people were having with that was the drawing. So drawing of the boat, because it's foreshortened, and the drawing of the lady. Here we don't have a boat. Here we don't have a lady. If you want to put some people in there, you can. But so in here, we're not going to have that much problems, because if you're off a little bit on a rock or a tree, you're not going to be that off. So it's a little bit easier than what we did last week. But so then work on trying to make sure that the colors are all great and stuff. And again, I'm not sure if you got my newsletter. If you get my newsletter, I talked this week about about controlling your pigment. And so if you want to get into that, get my newsletter. And again, for anybody who's new and wants to get my newsletter, you come over here. Let me just show you real quick. It's right down here. You come down to the bottom here of my website, and right there is my newsletter. Just sign your name. Right here, you put your name and your email, and you get into my newsletter. And this week again, and if you don't want to sign up, you can always go right down here where they're all archived. This little button right there says here. You can go get the newsletter there and see what I talked about this week. Because this week was it was actually a video in the newsletter showing you how to control your pigment. All right, let's get going here. So the sky is gonna be blue, and I'm gonna go with not a really bright blue. I'm gonna go with more of a very tingy blue because I don't want the blue to stick out so far that it comes forward. So, and do I want the clouds in there? They do look nice with the white. So yeah, why not? You know, let's take a little bit of this horizon blue, and I'm not gonna wet first. Why? Because I want to get some of those clouds in there, and I'll get some hard edges. And that's how in my video this week on Tuesday it showed, you know, to make it hard edge, you got to keep it dry. So I'm gonna go in here and make it light, very light sky. Again, you can make it as dark as you want. That's up to you. I decided to keep this one a little bit lighter than it is up there. Just gonna, and I'm doing it right into the trees here, a little bit on the inside of the trees. Not on the part where I want the yellows of the trees, or actually some of these are gonna be dark, but still I'm gonna make it more of a fall scene than it would be a summer scene. Or this looks like a fall scene. It looks like a fall scene over there, but there's still some of the trees that are green. And so here we go. I'm coming down here and just kind of letting things float inside. Once you wet it, of course, then you just float pigment inside that area, and that gets your soft edges. But the hard edges on the outer edge of these clouds are fine. You know, you can have some hard edges in clouds too. You don't have to have everything softened. If you want to soften some of those edges while it's dry, because that's why you're getting a hard edges, because it's dry, the paper, you can go in and then just take your brush and go across it with a damp brush and just wet it a little bit, and you can soften it that way too. So just start down through there, and I'm going to go down to the bottom. Excuse me. The pina colada wheat is got in there. So we're going to come down here, and I'm going to put it right away. I'm going to put some of this blue into the water. Why? Because some of this water is going to reflect that sky up there. So I'm going to put a little bit down here. And in the shadow, this is going to be shadow. As you can see, there's a shadow on this part of the water that's dripping down. And so we're just kind of going in here, putting this all down. And now the water that is churned up or falling, or that is a wave, or it's crashing and moving, water that's moving, I learned from Disney, watching Disney movies, that you keep it white. Just keep it white of the paper. Don't even think about going in there with anything. You could put masking fluid in there too, but that'd be a lot of masking fluid. So I'm just going to keep my brush away from those areas where I think the water's going to come down. And so in this area, this is going to be my white water, is going to be the blue, because this water's in shadow, this moving water. And so there, if the water is moving and it's in shadow, then of course it's not going to be white because it's in shadow. Same thing down here. This water hits the bottom, and it's going to be in shadow, but it's still moving. So it doesn't. I know you're thinking that this is going to be the water, the color of the water, but no, it's going to be the light part, because it's going to be what's going to be in shadow. Here I put a little violet in there too, just because it's not all just one color. And actually I'm going to put a little violet up here too, just because I love that color. And now the lights on the edges of the rocks, I could have masked those in, you know, but the center of interest is basically this whole area. I like to call it an area of interest instead of a center of interest, because a lot of times it's an area. It's not a thing. It's a whole area. This whole area will be my center of interest. And so I'm just going to keep that. I'm going to keep away from those whites. I'm just going to go around them. If you want and you feel more safer by putting masking fluid in there, you can go right ahead. So now with the background in the photograph, you can see it's pretty dark up the color up here. You can see up there. The color is pretty light, but it has some dark trees there. I'm going to keep it lighter than what it is up there. I am going to make it the orange, and I'm going to make it a warm background. That's okay, good. Then I'll have a cool shadow foreground. So I'm kind of doing what you do when you're doing a snow scene, making a warm background and a cool foreground. I'm just gonna go in here with some orange, maybe a little bit reddish orange. I got this light red, which is called light red, but I call it more of a terracotta kind of color, or burnt orange. And I put that in there. And if you want to take and draw, I'm going to do it with my round brush, because I'm going to go in there with a little bit of green by putting a little bit of this quinacridone gold with a blue, with my Prussian blue here. I'm going to put a little bit of green in there with the orange, and it'll gray it down because this orange is kind of in the red family, and so it's going to make it kind of a brown. And so I'm just going to go in there, and you notice how light I'm keeping it. I want to keep it light. I can always make things darker later, but I want to keep it kind of light. And then you notice I'm going around these trees because I'm going to make them really bright yellow, I think. I'm going to make them yellow. Instead of green, I'm going to make them yellow. Kind of coming down here. And I'm wetting as I go along. I know a lot of you know that I sometimes pre-wet with just water, but this time I'm going with a color, keeping it light so I know where I'm going. And then just going to come, and I can go into the rocks, but the rock edges I want to keep light, so I'm not going to go over that, so I can keep that white edge like it's shining from the back. Again, the sun's coming from back here through there. So why don't we right away, since I'm doing that, remember what we did with the golf course and other things we've done before, where the sun is bright? So make this area the lightest light, and actually put some yellow, like it's coming right through that area. Go right in my towel. So then it's going to be shining through this way, kind of coming this way, and it's going to hit these trees. And of course, we always color first. We always do our lights, so that's the color. So it's like you're doing a coloring book first. First, you're just doing the color, and then the darks will create the shapes. I am making a shape of these rocks, again, because I need the edge of the rocks to be light, like they're hitting kind of rim lighting. It's kind of rim lighting on that. So I'm going to go in here with some. So these are my lights. Remember the light pattern I had? I have a light pattern that goes through this area and right down. You've got to keep that in mind at the whole time. My darks are here, the trees, the rocks are my darks. Even though they're my darks though, I will go in after I get these lights in, I will go right away dark. But I'm going to put a little bit of this, of the yellow and orange into these trees, because even though these trees are dark, they're going to be edged off with a little bit of yellow, because some light's going to hit them. So they're not going to be totally dark on the edges. So I'm going to go in there now with the light parts, and then the dark parts again will show me where the light's coming from and give me a little bit of color of what's there underneath that. And so here the tree trunks, and the background is going to be right through the tree trunks. So I'm building a foundation for the darks, basically what you're doing. You're kind of just building that foundation so that when you put in the darks, the lights will already be there. The color will already be there. You'll know exactly what colors to use because your lights, you just go kind of complementary to whatever. I got a lot of orange. I got blue and orange. Basically, this was what it's going to be, blue and orange. Of course, I've got yellow, and so you have a little bit of purple in there too. So you keep it on that side of the, at that side of the color wheel. What shades of blue are you using? They are so pretty. The blue I'm using is the horizon blue. Thanks for asking the question. Who was that? That was Linda. Thanks for asking the question. That was the horizon blue. And horizon blue has white in it. And somebody asked me this week that TWSA is the deadline for entering the Transparent Watercolor Society show is this coming, I think, Saturday, the 31st. And so I'm doing a couple scenes, and I'm using a lot of colors that have white in them. But the Transparent Watercolor Society doesn't allow you to use white. But if the color has white in it, and if you put it into a water, it becomes transparent. So it just becomes more of a pastel color. And that, I think, will be acceptable, I think, to them, hopefully. I sure hope that they accept it. No, I've talked to a couple people from that, and they, it's about the transparency. It's not about the color having some white in it. You can still make a color that has white in it look transparent. It'll just give it, again, more of a pastel color. So now I'm putting the lights of the edge here so that when this goes with the dark, I'll have this color underneath where it's light. All right, and then so this will also be colors that's going to reflect into a wet rock. when a rock gets wet, these big boulders, when they get wet, they're going to reflect like almost like a mirror. So right here, I even see that in the picture, in the photograph, that there's a bunch of orange down here, and even in the light areas. So I will put a little bit of orange right in these rocks and in the water because the water reflects that too. So I'm just going to put that in there. And again, you work your lights. You work all your lights. I'm not working pieces of a painting. Yes, I am working this piece and that piece, but I'm working it as a whole painting. And that's what you got to keep in mind the whole time. It's not like you're just doing that rock and then you go into this rock, you don't finish that rock. You work it as an entire thing so that everything fits together like a puzzle. In the end, when your puzzle's all done, you have a nice, beautiful painting. Tina says when she layers her colors, they get muddied up. Um, well, you should getting your lights like I'm never going back into this area, so that's gonna be my lights. When I put my darks on top of this, the darks will overtake whatever's underneath there, and so and then you're gonna do them wet on the wet. They won't muddy them up; they'll make them gray, and gray is a good thing. So I wouldn't worry about that too much about muddying up a color. A lot of people think muddying up a color is when you. This is what muddying up a color is. So when you go in with like let's say a red, and you go with a blue, and if you keep on going like this, and then add another color, and just keep on going like that, and just rubbing it, rubbing it, rubbing it, then you're going to get more of a muddy color. But it's not so much a muddy color. You're just going to get a gray or a brown. As you can see, I got a brown when you're using complements. And that sometimes is a good thing. It's just how you apply it to the paper. If you keep on brushing back and forth, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, then it'll start getting a little bit grayer and muddier. And if you want that to be an area that isn't muddy or gray, then just put it down and like lay it in and leave it. Don't push it around like this. Don't keep on going back and forth on your paper. So that's my suggestion to you, Tina. Yes, the lights are connected, Everett. Yeah, I definitely you kind of connect the lights because that's the remember in my value study I showed you in my value study, I showed you that the lights are here. Oh, they're all connected. All this one area here comes down and that's all your light area. Your dark is all this then. So once I get my lights going, and once that's done, then yes, I will go right back into getting the darks. So let's go to the tabletop. And so pretty much that was a good way of stalling because I was waiting for this to dry so that one thing you have to do, wait for something to dry if you don't want to get the watermarks. And so up here, I'm going to let it mix in with that. And I could, since it's still damp, it's fine because it'll get some watermarks, but this is foliage, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to show you a couple different ways of making foliage because tonight I brought with these 3 brushes I brought, and they're all bristle brushes. These are things you can get at your local hardware store, or Ace Hardware, or Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's. They're bristle, or they're chip brushes, and they're bristle. And a lot of people like to cut into these and make them really bad. And I call this my ugly brush when I used to do the paint parties before COVID days. And we used to use these all the time, and you can use them to great textures with. And so I'm going to use that for some of the outer texture of some of these trees. And now I'm ready to do my darks. These are all my lights. My lights are done. The water that's white stays white, right? Remember I told you, water that's moving, that is churning and is moving, edge of a wave is white. So just leave it on the paper. You can put, like I said, you can use masking fluid to keep that, but I can go around that. All right, so let's go into our trees now. So now we're going to our darks. We're already to our darks. Look at that. And no big drawing problems on this one like last week. Last week we had the kayaker, and it's a little bit tougher to do because it is a kayaker. Let me see if there are any questions before I get going with my darks. Nope, I think we got enough questions. We got all the questions answered, I think. If I didn't answer one from before, just put it up there again. If you didn't hear me do it, set it up there again because I'm going right down the list, so I can't go back up. All right, so here we go. Am I stalled enough? I'm going to use my ugly brush, but first I'm going to mix a kind of a dark. What should it be? A dark greenish brown, orange. It should be cool because that's my background. I said my background. This is my foreground. For my foreground. So we're going to go with some purple. Purple for my darks. So I'm going to mix a nice dark purple here. And don't be afraid when you're using and making it dark to use black. I mean, I know a lot of people don't teach that, and you mix your own blacks, but it's not a problem if you need it really, really, really dark. You know, if it's really, really dark, don't be afraid to use a little bit of black first. And so see how it's making brown? I put yellow or quinacridone gold into that purple. It makes an instant brown. So if you don't have brown, purple and quinacridone gold is like the best color for anything. You can mix greens with it. You can mix brown with it. It's a wonderful color. So now I'm gonna go in here with a little yellow, mix it in with that purple, and I'm just gonna tap down to get my edge leaves. I know this looks like detail, which it is, but the outer edge of these trees has to be detailed. And I'm just going to go from top to bottom and get it finished with my darks. I'm not going to mess around. I don't go back in and layer things. I am layering one on top of the first wash, but that's you do anyways. I mean, you do your light wash first, and then you do your dark wash. So I'm going to get a little bit of this texture in there. And then now I'm going to put that aside, and now I'll go with my round brush. Where did it go? Here it goes. And now I'll just, oh boy, there's a real reflection in there, isn't there? Sorry, guys. Here we go. There we go. Hold it up a little bit. And so now I'll go in here with some really dark darks. And when I say dark, I mean dark. It's not like, you know, it's not the light. So if you get even close to some of these mediums, then you don't get a dark. That's not a dark. A dark is dark. And so get in there. I get in with orange. Because the orange, when yellow is darkened, it turns a little bit orangey. And with the green and purple, I'll do all of it together. And you notice I'm leaving some spaces available so you can see through these trees, because you don't want it to be just a solid, because there's a lot of branches coming down here, and I'll put those in while I'm going along. You notice I didn't wet the whole thing either, because I am doing this. I'm putting a couple of these branches in there, and I can even tap this brush, put some of these trunks in too. I mean, you get it done. You don't waste time. You know, just get you know it's going to be branches later. Just put them in now. There's people tend to do like little pieces, and they do little things here and there. Just get that whole area done. Get it done and move on. And that'll be done forever. You don't have to go back into there. And now once I've wetted it, then of course I float my pigment in there. So I go back in, and I just kind of go in and wet it as I go along, leaving spaces that you can see through the trees. And dark. I mean, almost black. Some of this stuff is almost dark. I mean, in the photograph, it's almost black, right? So why not use black? If it's that dark, I don't get the reasoning that you shouldn't use dark if you can color that black into a color that you want. So there's black in there, but I put purple in there. I also put red in there. It just gives it a darker thing. And I noticed a lot of these really famous artists now are using neutral tint, which is a color right here. It's a gray. Dark, and you can use that for graying down your things. So Tina, don't worry about getting muddy colors. Really, it's just a muddy color. It's not a muddy color, it's a gray, and we need to, as watercolors, put more grays in those spots, unless you want to, of course, in an area that you don't want gray. Now it's looking like the sun's coming right through there, doesn't it? Oh well, we'll have two suns. So we're just going to go through here and push this together. One thing about those bristle brushes, they break off some of the bristles, and so you'll have, sometimes you get those little hairs in there because of the bristle brushes they're very kind of bristly, and when I tap them down like that, it snaps the bristle at times. All right, so there's our foliage on that side. This side, well, let's do this side right away. What the heck? Since we're on this side. Now this side, it's going to be rimlet. Like, see how I rimlet some of the branches here, so it looks like it's light. The yellow's shining from the back. Like the sun is behind all these things, so you put them in there, looking like there's on the edge, there's light. So I'm going to put in some trunks here, and then cheers, everybody. Cheers. I gotta get my studio together so I can. This is still in my office. I've got to sell a few things to get out of there, get more room in my studio. I used to have a framing business, and I have a lot of framing equipment in there that I gotta get rid of. Anybody looking for framing equipment, let me know. But you have to drive here. So here we go with some dark pine tree. Of course, pine trees are green usually, but that doesn't mean you have to paint it green. I can make it dark and I can put some purple, float some purple in there because it's going to reflect. It's going to reflect the sun. And especially on this side, I can put orange in there so it reflects the tree that's next to it, or the light hitting the side is making the green look so bright that it's almost yellowy orange. So I'm going to kind of go in here, make a couple of these tree branches, trunk of the tree. All right, is your dark kind of thick right now? It looks like there's a good amount of water in the dark. Yes, there's a lot of water, but there's also a lot of pigment. I use a lot of pigment that floats around, so yes, there is a lot of pigment in there. And thick. Yes, you use it thick so they can stop and control the edge. Watch my video that I did this week on YouTube. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, I just did something on how to control your pigment. And definitely control your pigment, so you need enough water, but you need it to float. And then you have to learn how to guide that pigment that was with thick paint. And if you noticed, I did refill my palette this week. I started getting really low on a lot of colors, so I restocked my palette up. And so now we're going to go up here, and when the leaves leave the tree, you got a lot of hundreds of branches, right? And so you can't paint every one of those branches, or you can't draw every one of those branches in. I guess you kind of could if you're crazy enough to do that. But I kind of like to go like this. I kind of wisp all those branches in there. Like once the leaves are gone, I'll take one of these. Actually, look at this. I got a fan brush. And now you can do this with other brushes too. You can do this with like bristle these brushes. You can also do it with a regular brush by wisping it, not putting too much water on your brush. Get the color of the branch. Don't have too much water, and then just wisp it, and just get these little branches in there. Oh, sorry, I'm kind of covering that up. So I'm just kind of wisping it so that it looks like branches are the outer edge of the branches. There's a million branches up there, so I'm not going to paint every one of those. I mean, I only have an hour here. And so we're just going to go in here and just kind of wisp it. And then we'll go back in there and get some darker branches. Happy little trees, right? Happy little trees. This is one of Mr. Ross's favorite brushes right here. And so you can tap it too to make foliage also. So I'm going to get a little foliage here. Happy little foliage. Happy little squirrel running down this tree. All right, so there you go. That calls for a toast. Toaster Bob Ross. Well, that's pretty good. All right, so we'll leave that area alone now, and now let's get into our rocks. And we're going to go right down here. And the only thing I'm going to do up here is probably go up branches for details. And actually way back here, there's a little bit of dark, but I'm going to make it starting to get a little bit cooler colors. And so, like there's a little bit of foliage back here. Let's go back with our regular brushes. I'm just going to put a little bit of darker colors back there to make it look like it's farther back. And I could put later on, maybe I may put some really, really light trees back here with a very light. I know it's not like the photograph, but it needs to be light through here. And so later on, when this is dry, I'm going to put some hard-edged, very light trees back there, but not now. Right now I'm in my dark mode, and we're going to get in here with darks. And I need that light coming through there. You have to keep the value pattern. You cannot leave the value pattern. You always got to think about the value pattern. It's the second most important thing, other than the paint or the drawing end of your things. You got to learn how to draw. It's very important how you put the drawing onto the paper. It's very important. It needs to be looking good. Because if it doesn't look like what you're painting, you know, it's not going to look like anything. So you have to make sure that the drawing is on. Now I'm wetting as I go along because I want the edges. Remember, I want the edges of some of these boulders to be, and to get texture in there, you can either like tap it like this to get some textures, but it just has to be dark. And there's a lot of pigment, fresh pigment in here. And thanks, Jenny, for that question. Again, and if you got a question, just let me know. I look up every once in a while. And so now I'm going to make the farther back, I'm going to make warm. The farther back rocks, I'm going to make warm. And as it comes forward, I'm making this whole foreground cool. You're going to start noticing I'm going to go in my blues. I'm just going to start making these rocks in front bluer. And as they point to the edge of the rock, then that's going to be more of a warm. Because I decided my background's going to be warm, my foreground's going to be cool. There's nobody says that you can't do that. I mean, a lot of people always think that everything in the background has to be gray, but no, you can just do it all the different kinds of ways. So I'm using blues through here. And I drew the darks in. I didn't draw the whites in. So when you're drawing something, I didn't draw the water, I drew the rocks and the stuff that was dark down here. I don't know if you can tell that. So that way I know that this rock right here is the dark rock. If you're drawing the water, there is nothing you have to draw because the water is white. So it's kind of like negative painting drawing, you know, because you're drawing the water, which is going to be white. So to me, I'd rather draw the rock, and that way I know exactly where that water is going to be, because the rocks are what's going to do the shape of the negative painted water. So then doing a little bit of orange on the edges of here again, anywhere it switches off. The water I'm keeping white because it's running down there, so you don't have to worry about that. Now up here, these darks on top of your photograph, if you look, the tops that are right, I can't really point there, I gotta get an arrow for this. But right in this area right here, that's going to be a cool and really, really dark. But up here, I don't have to get it, that's farther back, so I'm going to make that less dark. Not quite as dark as in the front here, even though in the photograph it is that way. But again, we're the artist. We decide on what gets lighter and darker. I want to push that back so that I'm going to make that warmer because my warms are in the back. I'll hit that right into the tree. So if I can make my darks come together, Everett, you had asked about the lights coming together, you also do the same thing with the darks. Now I have a lot of different colors in here, but basically I'm going with blue-orange. That's what in my head, I'm going blue-orange, purple, lavender. Purple, lavender, purple, yellow. Okay, so now we're going down, get darker, darker, a little bit black, a little bit blue, a little bit purple. And then once you put this dark down, it's wet then, right? And you know me, always throw other colors in there. Don't just stick with the one color. Stick with a bunch of colors going in there. Carol asked about define. Is it define the value pattern? The value pattern is the light and the dark. When you're doing a composition, you have to have a good value pattern throughout your paper so you know what the biggest dark is and the biggest light. A lot of teachers teach it as 3 values. I know Andy Evanson does 3 values where there's the light, medium, and dark. I say the medium can go to either side, so you need to know what your light and what your dark part's going to be. And so basically these rocks in my detail are all my darks and the whole foreground, and so I'm having this pattern of light going right through the middle. And so that has to be done. I mean, if you don't have that pattern of light, you're not going to get making it look like it's sunny and it's bright sunlight in the background. Right now, my background looks like there's sun hitting this, right? And as I go in the foreground here, this is all going to be in shadow. And so I'm making it cool. And the color, if you get the right values, the color won't even matter. If you get the right colors, if you don't get the right values, you won't get the effect. But if the colors just are another added benefit to it. You can use the color to enhance the value pattern, where the value pattern can't be enhanced but just with color because you need those values. Though there's a couple artists out there that are pretty good at using color for the design of your painting. It's all about the designing your painting. I mean, you're designing your painting, and there's composition, and the composition is composed by the big lights and darks. I had a book that I written. You can go on my website. You can see I wrote 2 books. One on composition. It's not out of print, but you can still get it on like Amazon or eBay or any of those places that sell used books. Now I don't have enough violet in here, so let's get some violet in here. Remember where I said reflecting some of this violet into these wet rocks. So when a rock is wet, it reflects colors. So I'm gonna put a little violet in here too. Now I kind of misplaced where this rock was in there because I had a white light there. So what I'll do is I'll pull out a little bit of color here, pull out a little bit of pigment, make that a little bit lighter, put a little orange in there to separate that. And again, this is very wet now, and so now I can float my pigment. And if you've ever been with me with my classes, I'm all about floating your pigment. And again, watch that video I just put together this week for my value or for my newsletter, and it shows you how to control that pigment. You got to practice that. You need to know how to do that. You can't keep on doing watercolors until you know how to do that. You have to learn how to do a soft edge and control enough pigment so that it stops and gives you that soft edge that you want. All right, so now we go here, coming down, and see how many colors are in here? But the value, look at the value. The values are all dark, right? And so that's what I wanted. And so now I'm going to go in here and get the rest of my darks. And then the final thing will be details. Every painting I do is the same thing over and over again, but that's what you want. You want to be able to do the painting the same over and over and over. Let's go in here. I'm getting the side of the rock that's lighter, warmer. And then as it goes in the back, I'm going to go for a cool color. I'm looking at my photograph here to see what's happening here. I put a rock in here. Oh, I forgot to tell you that. I didn't like in the photograph that this was all light on the side here. I put a rock in there just because that's all coming around the water and hitting this. And I just thought better composition would be to make a couple of little rocks here and make this dark come back on this area. And then also I'll make this into the water. So there'd be a nice water here. I just thought I don't need that much of waterfall coming all the way around this bank. If you want to do it the way it is there, it's not bad. You can do that. I just decided to put a rock in there. It's my prerogative. I can do that. I'm the artist. I can do whatever I want. And I just felt it'd be nicer that way. You do what you want. And so I'm going to put these darks in here. Now I'm putting the darks in. Again, I'm putting the darks in. I'm not putting the water in. I'm putting the darks. But automatically it negative paints the water, right? Because the water's white. And so it's a way of negative painting without even knowing that you're negative painting. Just put in the rocks and don't go into the water. Just show the rock. And then instantly you start looking at it and it starts like your water starts coming falling down on the edges. So I drew in where the darks are going to be. This is dark right here. And this is going to be the water. It's going to be a reflection in the water. I know it's not still water right there. Actually, it is right there. And so that's going to reflect what's above it, right? And so you're just going to reflect that color into the water, giving me little nice little waves right there. Same thing down here. What color? It's whatever is above it, right? You can put this little blue in there from what's above into the water. I'm not painting the water. I'm painting the rocks behind the water. It's the easier way of doing it. If you draw up the darks, and then it automatically makes your lights because you're drawing the darks and the lights will just automatically be there. So your waves will and your waterfall will automatically be there because you just drew your darks around it. Here there's a big dark through here. Also, I want to tell you that a lot of photographers, they blur a waterfall, and my teacher, Irving Shapiro, always said that is not how water is. And he was, when it comes to waterfalls, that was his thing, the waterfalls. And he had always said that water is not soft, it's hard. And when it bubbles and comes down, and even in this photograph, it's kind of blurry because it's moving. But that's not, when it's moving, you can still make some of it look soft edged, but most of it you want hard edged. Most of it you want hard edged because it is a hard substance coming down and it's hitting, and there's some spray and you can use that soft edge. That's okay. And so see how now this looks so light, this area? Almost too light. It's going to be way too light for a shadow area. So I'm going to go in there later with a little bit darker shadow in there. And so because I didn't get it dark enough as I thought I should have gotten it. And so here is also a shadow. So I'm going to put that in there right away. Get a little violet in here. Just going to shadow this waterfall up here a little bit. Any questions here? Let me see. Nope. Let's see, a little bit here. And then since this splashing in here is also in the shadow, I might as well put this in here too, because this is reflecting, this is water reflecting on the top here before it hits the going downwards. And so it's water that is still, it's like it's not churning. And if it is churning, you're going to keep it white, but it's in the shadow. So you still have to give it a little bit of shadow to it. Here I'm going to put a little bit of reflection. And also, if there's waves, waves are kind of interesting because one side of the wave could be in the shadow and one side could be in the top, it could be in the light and reflects the light sky. So it's a little bit of everything when you're doing waves. And if you ever want to study that stuff, just take scrap sheets of paper and go online, type in wave, and then just start trying little sketches of it. Don't try to do a painting of something when you don't know how to do it. Do a little practicing first and see how you practice it. Do it on a small sheet of paper, scrap sheet of paper. So here we got, oh, so I think somebody had a question. I like the way you painted negatively around rocks and water. Shows how value makes a painting. Yep, Carol, you got it right. Is it moving water at the bottom of the pool? Here it's moving water and it's a lot of churning, so there's going to be all white in here. I'm going to decide as an artist that I'm going to make this still though, because I like still water more than all this churning of the water, because the churning of the water doesn't look so cool. If you look at the bottom, it's all white and it's all churned up, you know, and that's fine, but I'm going to make it more of a still water, like it hits there, and then you have a little bit of churning and it's in the shadows. Let me just put the shadow color in there now of this water. Because it is in the shadow. It can reflect a little bit of light here and there. I'm just going to darken it up a little bit, the white. And put it into the shadow. And then that's churning, that's the light. It's kind of funny to think, but that's the light. And then we're going to make it dark over here. That's going to be not the churning of the water, but the stillness of the water. And over here, all this right here is going to reflect into the pool, leaving some of the white that's churning in there. But we're going to try to get some of this into the pool here, so it shows a reflection in the water. And that way I also want to make it dark down there anyways, because if you look at the photograph, it's all light in the whole bottom. And I just don't think that's as pretty as if you make it more of a still water with, it's running still, but it's just not as fluffy and everything, not as churned up. Again, if you did it like the photograph, it's not gonna be bad. It'll look like that, and that's not bad. I like to do this my own thing to make it look so better. And I love doing water anyway, so if you know how to do something and you've done many of them, you know what looks better than other things, and that's where experience comes in as an artist. Is that you know you've done it before, and the way it looks originally, like in the photograph, if you don't like it, you know how to change it. You just make things different. Now my boulders don't have any texture in them, and that's because I didn't put anything in there. You could also put texture in your rocks by doing your rocks with one of these. Like I can still put it in. Some of these are still damp, and I'll get a watermark. Maybe a watermarks will give me a little bit of texture in the rocks. And so I'm just going to tap in a little bit of orange in here, and it's going to be giving me some watermarks because this is damp, and it's going to start giving me a little texture. And so I want to put this up so you can see it here. I'm just going to tap in a little texture. Just tapping the ugly brush into there a little bit. And even some lighter colors on top of the dark. And it also can look like foliage, like there's some kind of plant life that's on the rocks too. And that's not a bad thing. All right, and then we're going to take a little light blue here. Give it a little bit of texture there. Give some interest to the, instead of just clean. I mean, again, it's up to you. You like it all clean and perfect without the texture, that's good too. That's what makes this interesting, because as I was looking at all the pictures that you guys did and put on Facebook, on my Facebook group there, it's so neat to see the difference of, we're all doing the same exact picture, but they turn out so different, and that's just wonderful. I mean, I just love that. And actually, a lot of times you guys do a better job than I did. A couple of you this week had done that. Oh man, like 3 of you done it better than I have ever done. The kayak one, it was really nice, and the colors you use, they're great. So keep it up, keep doing it, and you know, we'll see where we go from there. And again, give me some ideas of things that you want to paint. I'm running out of ideas. We have a lot. I mean, I don't know if somebody wants to do a portrait. That's a little bit harder, but we'll do one. And then I got that. Somebody suggested a portraiture, and we'll definitely do that. I just got to find a decent one that's not too hard, and you can learn from. That's another thing. When I pick the subject matter, I pick it so that there's some learning aspects to it. You know, you got to learn something about this. It's the reason I do these, is that you're learning something about watercolor and how to handle that. Drawing wise, that I can't teach you drawing. You have to do that on your own. You have to learn how to draw. I can show you how to use an artograph, you know, or use a projector, and or do that. But that's up to you. You can get those things down. Get your drawing down on the paper nicely. Now I notice that some of this is a little bit too light for the rocks. I'm losing my value pattern. So right in here, I'm going to make my value pattern again. A little bit darker right here. You gotta stick with the value pattern. I can't say that enough. Too many people just sway away because they like the way the wash is. But if you lose the value pattern, you lose the whole concept that you planned out for it. Now I'm doing little reflections. And I'm also wasting time here so that I can let things dry so I can get my details. Because pretty much all I have left is my details. Going in here and get those little waves. And I didn't use white on this, though I can use white at the end. Let's say if I wanted to use white to sparkle, put some sparkle in there. So I didn't do that. I didn't put masking in because sometimes when water is flat like this and there's waves, it also sparkles. It sparkles in the sun. I mean, it's really sparkly. And so to put that in there, you put dots, and you can use masking fluid for that too. So I kind of want to sometimes not do things so that see what you guys can do. If you can remember some of these things that I taught you, and you put them in and show me what you did. All right, now I'm going to go back in here. Remember I said I was going to put a couple trees in the bed distance there? Linda wants me to paint old barns. That was a specialty of my mentor also, Irving Shapiro. He did barns really well. And we can do a barn. I love doing barns. We always did really dilapidated barns. Ones that were falling down. Those were always the best. Buildings that were falling down. And so now I'm putting a little bit of trees back there, but you notice how light they are and how I'm not making them contrasty. I want to push them back. They're in the distance. They're not in front. They're back here. And pine trees are always fun to put in. Just kind of tap here and there and get in some pine tree. All right, so there's the background, and now 2 is not good. 2 is not a good number, the same. So I'm going to put one right in the middle here, smaller. Always go with odd number things. Don't make things even on both sides. Make things odd shaped. Now, if I'm looking at on my screen, this looks a lot lighter, this area, than it is in the real painting. Let's see if I hold it up, you guys can see how much pigment is in there. See how much pigment is in there? There's tons of pigment in this wash. But when you put down water and you let it float in there, it's gonna float. So let's make this a little bit darker. A little bit darker with the edges of my water running down. And then right when you do that, make sure you put it right in the water too. Because I'm making it reflecting more than I am making it churning. I can still make it churning, but right now I want to make it reflecting. Now I'm putting the colors, I'm finding the colors that are above and putting them reflecting into the water. You kind of reverse it like it was a mirror. See how I'm just flipping it, and then you just let it bleed off where you don't really see it. Same thing with this, I kind of bleed it off. This color, this bright color here, I can put in the water and then just have it come down. Ooh, that's a little bit too bright. So that's okay. You can always make things darker, and you also make them less vibrant. There's 2 things you can always do. So I always like to put in more than I think for the color and also for the value. Always, it's going to get 20% lighter, these images or these layers. So always push it 20% darker than you really think it should be. I'm going to use a little bit of this color in here in the water. You know what else? We got this coming back here. Now I said the last thing I'm going to do is probably put up here, put some of this, the tree branches. Remember I said the tree branches? Cheers again, guys. Talking too much. My voice is getting hoarse. And so we're coming down here. This last Saturday I did a Zoom paint along, and it wasn't a paint along; it was a pencil along. It was a pencil society out of Arizona, and we used a whole bunch of pencils. And so get ready for I'm gonna start doing some Zoom classes. I still have to do 2 test ones, which I'm figuring out the dates right now, and I know I have enough people for those already. But we will have a couple classes and maybe some paint alongs. We're like this same thing that we're doing right now. And so now I'm putting branches in. But we'll do a paint along like we're doing now, but you're going to be painting along with me. Like I know a lot of you do it afterwards, but this would be like you come and do it when I'm doing it. And so I know it's a little bit harder to do it as fast as I do, but I will slow down because I'll do the wash first and then you do the wash. And it'll be a fun Zoom thing. We'll do that coming up sometime. I'm getting pretty good at the Zoom things, and we're only going to do 1 camera on this one for the Zoom paint along because we'd have way too many cameras up there. In my classes in Zoom, I have 2 cameras for each person, one for on them and one that they can watch, and then the other on them painting actually, so I can see what they're painting. That's what we've been doing with the Zoom. That's what I learned on my first Zoom class that I had done for you guys. And so let's see, I think a couple more over here. Little dots in here, little reflection. This is my center of interest area, so let's make this a little bit nicer. Let's get some, maybe some yellowish white. Oh, look at I'm using white now. I'll put a little bit of some foliage right here, some little weeds and stuff in the rocks. I want to make this interesting right here. You know, this right here, I got to make interesting. So put a little bit of that in there. And it's still going to be my dark. I'm just putting dots of light in there, you know, just little dots. So it doesn't change my big value pattern. When you put little things in there, like especially if it's middle tone can go to either side. Like I always say, middle tone can jump from the dark to the light. It doesn't matter which part that the middle tone goes in. As long as you got your big light and dark pattern of black and white type of pattern, that's fine. You can put the middle tones in there too, and it won't affect your big composition. What size brush are you using for the details? This is a rigger, a number 4 rigger, and it's a long, slender bristle brush. Let's see, you can see right there, number 4. It's a BeckerArt brush. You can get them on my website. This one's a pretty cheap brush, and they're really nice. I mean, look at that point you can get on there. And I just go in, and I just use it for little round deal details. The nice thing about a long bristle brush like that, it's not bristle, it's nylon. Synthetic nylon. But the longer it is, the more water and pigment it holds, so you don't have to go back and forth with those short little ones that are detailed. You constantly got to go back to your palette and pick up more paint. Here, you can use this whole thing because there's so much water in there. I can just keep on dotting because it's going to take a while to run out of your paint and your water that you're putting in there. See how I can just go in there, put little dots, and that was my the secret. My mentor, he always did dots, and the dots show like you're looking through the waterfall, and you're seeing behind the water, the little breaking of the water. And so that's what that looks like. And then those breaks you also put into the reflection. See that? And I put a little bit of this yellow right on that trim right there because it needs it. And then I think we're done. Let's see what I can do here. I'm going to use my fan brush. I think I'm just going to dot this. And this is kind of opaque, and I wouldn't be able to enter this into the TWSA. But that's okay. Now remember, TWSA, they're accepting entries until the 31st. So get them in this either today, tomorrow, or Saturday. One of those 2 days, you gotta get your TWSA entry in. Let me use my flat brush here, and I don't like how detailed that was, so I'm gonna push a little water in there, let it bleed a little bit, put a little bit of orange in there. You can always float it on top if you put water down first and then just float it. Float a light on top of a dark. It's okay. It'll still look fresh. It won't look muddy. Now, Tina, this is where if I would rub it, it would make it muddy or gray. But if I put it on top and I leave it set there and make it wet into wet, and it's just floating, then it won't be mud. All right. So I think, let me take the tape off and see what it looks like without the tape. And I think we're pretty much done. This tree bugs me here. Hold 1 second. How much time we got here? Oh, we got 5 minutes. It's kind of funny how you can take it right down to the minute. So here we go down here. I'm just gonna make this a little bit darker. Kind of fades too fast. So I'm just gonna put that in there. Put a little bit of mess it up here, down here a little bit. There's, nobody cleans the forest. So it's nice and messy with a bunch of weeds down here. All right, let's take the tape off. Always pull away. Always remember, depending what kind of paper you have, sometimes if you pull away too fast, or it rips the paper. So, and actually, some of this is still wet, so I definitely want to pull away. You always take it like this and then pull away, like this way. Pull away from the painting. Now pull it upwards like this, straight up, or into the painting. Pull it away. You don't want to rip that paper and then ruin it, the whole painting you just spent the whole whatever time you did on. You can see some of mine is still wet. And to let you know, somebody had asked about when my next live workshop is. My next live workshop will be up at Dillman's. So my next workshop will be up at Dillman's, and so that's in June, I think. I don't have anything scheduled for a live workshop until June and July. We've got 2 at Dillman's, which is up north. And here you can see. And those are live, and you can sign up for now. Hopefully by that time we'll all have our vaccine, hopefully. And so again, thank you for dropping by. Thanks for doing the paintings. And again, post them on my Facebook group, or even on my Facebook page if you don't want to be part of the group. But everybody likes to give a little bit, if you want some details on what you have to do to it, or a lot of people are answering questions and stuff, so that's pretty cool. That's why I started the group. It's a good place to put those photographs that you do, and if you look on there now, you see all what we did last week. A bunch of you did a great job. So so thanks. So again, have a great week, and again, send me some ideas. All right, so see you guys later. Have a great weekend. Have a great rest of the week. Well, actually Friday and this weekend. So have fun, guys. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye bye.